Hello. If you're here, you might share a feeling I once had. Being utterly overwhelmed. The world changes rapidly. It's loud, chaotic, and relentless. Yet within, there's an unsettling stillness. You feel uncertain of your path and question what's real. However, there's a perspective, if you're open to it, that can help you regain your footing. Find calm not in chaos, but in inner peace. Step back, far back, to see the broader picture and locate yourself amid life's turmoil. The ancient Romans referred to this as the view from above. The Stoics described it as a return to reason. Before we begin, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel. It's free and keeps you connected with this video series in the days ahead. Thank you sincerely. Chapter 1. When the world is in chaos and trust falls apart. We are living in an era where trust is as fragile as glass. Just one unanswered message, a negative comment, or a small failure can be enough to make us doubt ourselves. The world no longer operates in a way that feels predictable. From the economy and society to personal relationships, everything seems to be shifting, as if mocking the peace in our minds. Have you ever felt that way? You wake up one morning, check your phone, and every piece of news only adds to your confusion. You see others succeeding while you feel stuck. You look in the mirror and ask, am I falling behind? Am I on the wrong path? In that very moment, confidence, the firm foundation of your inner world, begins to crack. Chaos in the world isn't new, but the greatest danger isn't the external noise. It's when that noise seeps into us. When we no longer know what's real or fake. When we forget what we're living for and who we're living for. And slowly, we begin to tie our self-worth to things beyond our control. Achievements, judgments, and how others see us. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor and philosopher, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That wasn't a hollow quote. It was a wake-up call. Because most of the time, we let the world define us instead of defining ourselves. Imagine this, a person struggling through life, swept up by family expectations, work stress, and repeated failures. He can't sleep well, can't smile sincerely, because there's always a whisper inside, I'm not good enough. But what if he stopped and asked himself, are the things that hurt me even within my control? Or have I handed over the keys to my mind to someone else? That's the moment he can begin to look inward and reclaim ownership of his mind. Because only when we know what's ours and what isn't, can we regain our inner stability. Confidence isn't arrogance. Confidence isn't pretending to be strong while bleeding inside. Confidence is the calm within when you know your true worth. And don't let the world decide it for you. But how do we reach that calmness in the middle of life's overwhelming noise? How do we hold on to trust when everything feels like it's falling apart? The answer may not come from action, but from perspective. And that's where Stoic philosophy steps in, with a strange tool few people today know about: view from above. A simple yet profound exercise that helps us escape the narrow self and see the bigger picture. Life as if it were a miniature map. And when you practice that view, you'll understand why Marcus said, realize you have power over your mind, and you will find strength. Because confidence doesn't come from beating life. It comes from knowing you don't have to win, to still be yourself. And to do that, you must rise above. Far above. Up there, the chaos will seem small. And you, more clearly than ever, will see that you were never weak. Chapter 2. The View from Above. an exercise for free spirits. Imagine yourself rising above the ground, away from your familiar room, away from the stifling city, away from the endless stream of news that drains your mind. You're no longer a name, a title, or a social role. You're simply an observer. From above, you see everything in motion. The rushing crowds, the petty arguments, the egos battling over fragments of pride. The city keeps living, keeps striving, keeps competing. But strangely, the higher you rise, the smaller everything becomes. Observe the world as if from above. See the gatherings, celebrations, tears, battles, all as a sea of shifting appearances. Marcus Aurelius. Marcus didn't write that line as poetry. He wrote it on a freezing night from the battlefield, with revolts ready to erupt at any moment. As an emperor, he bore the weight of an empire, but as a philosopher, he knew that by adjusting his perspective, he could survive. Not just in body, but in soul. The view from above is a spiritual exercise. It doesn't ask you to climb mountains or meditate all day. It only asks for a few minutes a day. Close your eyes and imagine rising above. Step by step, rising above your room, your neighborhood, your city, your country, until you see Earth, small like a blue marble spinning slowly in a vast, dark universe. And when you are there, where titles, past, and expectations fall away, what do you see? You see that the criticisms that once kept you awake are now whispers in the wind. The failures that brought you shame are specks of dust in the flow of time. Even you is no longer defined by roles like employee, child, father, but simply becomes fully human. That is the gift of the view from above. It doesn't erase problems, but it shifts their weight. And once that changes, your emotions follow. You feel lighter, freer, and confidence quietly returns. We often believe confidence comes from control, but Stoicism teaches the opposite. Confidence doesn't come from having everything in your hands, but from knowing you don't have to stand firm. As you rise, the things you once thought were critical start to fade. You no longer chase them because you've seen their true form, shimmering illusions up close, meaningless from afar. Now imagine your life again. Deadlines, drama, heartbreaks. Place them on a vast map, then step back, and then step back again, until they're just a dot in the world's big picture. That perspective, no one can take it from you. Not your boss, not your ex, not society. Only you can choose to withdraw or to rise. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." The view from above isn't for the masses. It's for the brave, those willing to leave behind the ego to seek something greater. And that truth will return to you something the world never gave you: inner freedom. And when you are truly free, when you view life from above, fear disappears. Not because you've conquered the world, but because you realize the world never truly had power over you. Chapter 3. The Pilot Story, When Perspective Saves the Soul. In 1972, during a reconnaissance mission over Southeast Asia, an F-4 Phantom II jet was shot down and crashed into a remote jungle. The pilot survived. He was captured and thrown into solitary confinement. No explanation, no trial. Just 4 narrow walls, the endless sound of falling rain, and a future swallowed in darkness. In those first days, he struggled. He screamed, prayed, and then went silent. He hated his captors. He hated himself. In that dark corner, he faced one final enemy: his mind. Then one day, on the verge of surrender, he remembered a quote he had once read in his flight manual, a line from an ancient Greek philosopher. "It is not things that disturb us, but our judgment about them." Epictetus. He repeated that sentence like a mantra. At first, it meant nothing, but gradually he began to imagine. He imagined he wasn't locked in that cell. He imagined himself observing from above, from the very sky he once flew through. He saw the prison, the guards, and even himself, small, alone, yet still alive. The view from above came to him not as theory, but as a spiritual weapon. As he envisioned himself rising higher, fear began to fade. Hunger remained. Injustice remained. But the panic disappeared. Because he was no longer a victim, he became an observer. And in that state of observation, he reclaimed something no guard could ever take: his dignity. From that height, threats were just background noise. The forgotten days became a mere sliver of time, and death, no longer a terrifying enemy, was simply part of the whole. By seeing himself from a distance, he escaped the confines of his narrow identity. That pilot was eventually released. He returned home, not in glory, but in silence. When someone asked, "How did you survive?" he simply replied, "I learned to see everything from above." Few understood him right away, but for those who have ever stood face to face with fear, that sentence was a light in the darkness. We don't need to be captured to feel imprisoned. We are trapped every day by expectations, judgments, and the fear of not being accepted. We are imprisoned within our minds. That's why the pilot's story is not just his, it's ours. Epictetus, once a slave who knew the weight of chains, said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That pilot, though physically confined, was the freest man in that prison, because he mastered his mind. Meanwhile, we, though physically free, are often prisoners of our thoughts. So when the world becomes too loud, when you are criticized, misunderstood, or dismissed, close your eyes and rise. Imagine looking down from the sky. You'll see yourself, a human being trying, learning, and living, amid an ocean of chaos. You'll see every wound shrink, and you'll see life come into focus. In that moment, you are no longer a victim. You are the one who sees clearly and who chooses to live from a higher place. Sometimes, a shift in perspective is all it takes to survive, not just in body, but in soul. Chapter 4. Confidence is not illusion, but inner stillness. In modern society, we often mistake confidence for something flashy. A person walks into a room wearing an expensive suit, speaking loudly, laughing often, seeming to know every answer, and we call them confident. But one rejection, one failure, one blow to their reputation, and they crumble like a sandcastle. Because what they carried wasn't confidence. It was a shell. Stoicism sees it entirely differently. Stoics do not seek confidence in the eyes of others. They do not build it through praise or achievements. They go the opposite way and find it in inner stillness. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Read that again and you'll see a painfully simple truth. Freedom, and therefore confidence, does not come from controlling the world, but from refusing to let it control you. Reflect on your life. How many times have you worried because no one liked your post? How many times have you felt inferior because your friends bought houses or cars, while you haven't? How many times have you changed yourself? Not because you believed it was right, but because you feared how others saw you. All of these have one thing in common. You tied your self-worth to things beyond your control. And when you do that, you lose your freedom. And without freedom, confidence vanishes. The Stoics understood. True confidence is the quiet of the mind, even when storms rage around it. It does not depend on praise or recognition. It comes from the awareness, I am living according to reason, fulfilling my duty, and no one can take that away from me. Imagine a man walking through a market, mocked by hundreds for his strange clothing, for his silence. He keeps walking, head unbowed, eyes unafraid. Not because he is arrogant, but because he knows his worth is not defined by the noise of the crowd. Marcus Aurelius, the greatest emperor of Rome, once wrote in his journal, "Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your actions." That quote draws two paths. One leads to an insecure ego, forever craving validation, needing to be better than others. The other leads to stillness, where you do what is right and let the outcome fall where it may. A truly confident person is not someone who always wins. It is someone who doesn't need to win to feel worthy. And paradoxically, they often achieve the most, because they act from clarity, not illusion. Stoicism doesn't teach us to abandon goals, but it teaches that your value should not be staked on results. You can fail and still keep your dignity. You can be misunderstood and still keep your inner calm. You can have nothing and still not be afraid. That is the most durable kind of confidence, because it does not need the world to be right for you to feel at peace. It only needs you to be right with yourself. When you look at life from above, as you've learned in the previous chapter, you begin to realize most of the things that scare you have nothing to do with you. They are just reflections of this world, not definitions of who you are. And when you let go of the need to control everything, you will discover something strange. Your mind goes quiet, and in that stillness, you find confidence, not born from proving yourself, but from understanding yourself. Not from the spotlight, but from the light within. Chapter 5. Turning perspective into a way of life. There's a bitter truth we only realize after seeing life from above. Most of the confusion, anxiety, and pressure we carry each day aren't because the world is too chaotic, but because we've lived too close to the ground, too close to others' expectations, judgments, and standards. Stoicism doesn't just give us a view from above as a temporary mental exercise. It invites us to turn that view into a daily way of living. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. When you wake up in the morning, ask yourself, what do I truly have control over today?" You may not control what people say about you, but you control whether you react. You may not change the market, the economy, or your boss's decisions, but you always control your attitude, your focus, and your integrity. That's the Stoic spirit. Not retreating from life, but walking into it with a clear mind and a steady heart. When you fail, you don't blame. When you're praised, you don't boast. When you lose, you don't break. Because your foundation is built on what doesn't change, on reason and dignity. A modern thinker once said, "Peace doesn't come from everything being calm around you, but from having made peace within yourself." The view from above, once practiced, stops being a technique. It becomes instinct. You see someone criticize you, and instead of anger, you ask, what pain might they be carrying inside? You face risk, And instead of fleeing, you tell yourself, if it comes, I'll use it to forge myself. You see someone more successful, and instead of envy, you ask, am I living up to my duty? In those moments, you're living a Stoic life. No grand declarations, just each day seeing more clearly, acting more steadily, and fearing less. You've brought the view from above into every step, every conversation, every decision. And that is the real victory. Not loud, not dazzling, but lasting. It's the victory of someone who has returned from chaos with clear eyes and a freed heart. Because when you see life from above, you don't just see the world more clearly, you see yourself. And that is enough. Conclusion. When you've seen everything from above. So you've journeyed with me through 5 deep layers of what seemed like just a thought exercise. But in truth, it has the power to transform how we live. From being stuck in the chaos of the world, to gaining a sweeping view from above, then facing yourself, stripping away false illusions, and finally learning to live with awakened eyes. You may not realize it, but each step of that journey was an inner one, from confusion to clarity, from fragility to calm. And that's exactly what the great Stoic philosophers hope to pass down. We don't need to control the entire world, just how we see it. Marcus Aurelius, alone on the battlefield at night, once wrote, "How ridiculous and how strange to be surprised at anything which happens in life." He didn't write that out of indifference, but to remind himself, when you see the world as it truly is, impermanent, shifting, imperfect, you stop struggling. You live with your feet firmly on the ground and your vision from the sky. When you leave this video, the world outside will still be noisy. The unanswered emails, the bad news, the comparisons, the worries, the voices of doubt in your head, they'll still be there. But one thing has changed, and that is you. You can now take a step back, breathe deeply, and ask, will this still matter when I look at it from above? If today were my last, would I still worry about this? Am I living in line with nature, reason, and human dignity? If you can keep these questions close, you're not just finding confidence, you're living as a free person, and that is something the world can never take from you. If this video touched something in you, keep it. No need to share right away, no need to nod too soon. Just sit quietly for a few minutes and look at this world once more from above.